Today, I want to talk about some myths that are pushed by business coaches in the coaching industry about what it means to be a coach, how to market yourself as a coach, and how to create a really successful coaching business. Welcome to Reclaim, a podcast for women, by women, on conversations that matter. I am your host, Thaís Sky, international speaker, teacher, and a certified life coach currently working to become a licensed psychotherapist in the state of California. Join me here every week as I offer thoughts and interviews on what it means to reclaim your humanness in this messy world. I have so many thoughts about this, y'all, because I was going through the directory of podcast episodes that I've released in the past, and I was so surprised to see that I really only have one other episode on what it means to be an entrepreneur, and more specifically a coach. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I have so many thoughts on this. I have to share more. So you can actually go catch that episode. It's episode 97 on being an entrepreneur, and I share some thoughts of what it means to be an entrepreneur. You can also go to the show links to get that. But today I want to talk specifically about building a coaching business. I currently have a mentorship for coaches who love the art of depth coaching, coaches who work in addiction and grief and trauma, who want to be really trauma-informed, feminist-based, social justice-oriented, and doing really good, deep work. That is who my mentorship is for. I have the group mastermind and I have the one-on-one mentorship. I've loved this offering. If you remember, I released it a few months back and it has been so wonderful. And having my mentees come to me and share with me the difficulties that they've experienced in the coaching industry, I felt like it was really overdue to do an episode where I talk about my own perspective of what it means to build a coaching business. I know that so many people who enter into the coaching arena want to do it out of a deep desire to help people. They come because there were certain tools that they found was really supportive for them, and now they want to share those tools with other people. That was certainly my story. That's my experience. You know, I was recovering from an eating disorder. I was finding tools, mindfulness, yoga, Buddhism, that were really helping me reorient my relationship with myself. And I wanted to teach that to other people. So I started out as a health coach, and then I shifted to life coaching. I did a stint of business coaching for a minute, and then I went back to life coaching. And now I do, what's called depth coaching, which is like I talk about emotional wounding. I talk about complex trauma in my one-on-one work. I talk about all of the ways that we get in our own way. Because I believe that we can't really support someone in building a life that they want if we don't dive into the past and the places that they've developed certain defenses and belief systems that are now inhibiting the life that they want. So my coaching is very therapy-based, which is why I went back to get my master's in clinical psychology, because I wanted even more skill set, even more tools of how to navigate this really complex but delightful work. And I have found to be the best thing I've ever done. Getting the type of support necessary to hold a container for people's woundings and challenges has been really instrumental to my work. Anyway, so I want to share some things that I've learned in the 10 years that I've been doing this work. I want to kind of bust some myths based on not only my own journey of being a coach, but also the journey of being a mentor to coaches as well. Now, just FYI, if you are interested in mentorship with me, I do have a couple spots available in my group mastermind. You can learn more by going to thaissky.com/mentorship. You can also go to the show notes and get the link there. I'm really, really excited about inviting women into this mentorship because I deeply believe that there is a need for more accountability and support in the coaching industry, particularly for coaches who do this type of work. If you do this type of work, if you do depth coaching, you know that you are responsible for holding people's pain. And it's really important that you're also getting support in that you're not doing that alone. We cannot be responsible for holding that type of stuff all by ourselves. And I'd never been more viscerally aware of this than when I got in my own supervision, my own mentorship. And I realized, oh my gosh, there are so many blind spots that I don't even see. There's so many things that I'm not even considering when I'm working with my patients, with my clients. And oh my gosh, when I can bring someone in to give me another pair of eyes on my work, not only does it make my work better, but it makes the container that I hold for my clients even better. I believe that this is instrumental in the coaching industry, particularly those who are doing more depth coaching. It's going to fortify our industry. It's going to make our industry more accountable, more responsible, and more expansive. So if you're thinking that you want this type of support, you can go to my mentorship and you can learn more and apply there. I also have a whole series that I did called The Art of Depth Coaching. It's a 3-part series on practical skills and tools that you can incorporate as a coach in your own work. So you can go listen to that by going to the show notes. But okay, let's get into it. I want to talk about coaching industry myths. These are myths that I see a lot of business coaches push that I don't, not all business coaches, of course not, but I see this narrative in the coaching industry. This is the way that is done. This is how you can create a successful business. The problem is, I did all of those. All the myths that you see in the coaching industry, all the things that you see people push, I've done. Literally, I've done them all. I've been at this game for a long time. I've been doing this for 10 years. I've seen so many trends go in and out, and I've done all of it. And I got mixed results. And I really floundered in some cases and really failed in some cases. And for the past 5 years, right, since 2015, I've been running my business full time. So I've failed and messed up and had no net. I've accumulated a lot of credit card debt in attempts to make my business succeed. And there's a lot of, different opinions about whether or not you should do it that way. And I really can't say whether that's the right or the wrong way to go. I think it really depends on the individual. For me, it's what I felt like I needed to do. And it has created where I'm at now. But I don't think that's necessarily for everybody. I think having side income to support your business while your business gets off the ground, there's nothing shameful about that. We all have different needs and have different things that we need to do to get to where we need to be. But I've been doing this for full time for 5 years, but I've been a coach for 10 years. So I've tried a thing or two. And so all of these myths that I'm kind of quote unquote busting here are based on my own grounded experience. And it's been very painful. There's been a lot of really painful experiences that I've had and growing pains that I've developed. But here's the thing. The most important thing for me has always been to make this work sustainable, to be in this long term, and it to be people first, to be grounded in people. I became a coach not because I wanted to make $1 million, $1 billion, and travel the world, though that's great. And those are wonderful things for some people, but I really wanted to be of service to people. And that was really important for me to ground in that, because when I lost my way, which I did, I forgot that North Star. I forgot that I did all sorts of things that weren't people first. When I started to get too far away from that, I started to feel it and I started to notice it, and the results showed that. And whenever I put myself as a people first coach, when I grounded my business in what is an integrity to the honoring of the human experience, my business has thrived. Because that's been a really important value of mine. And when I'm in alignment with my value, everything reflects that and people can feel that. So if you're listening to this, that's probably your value too. You're probably in it because you love this work and you want to do this work really smart and wonderfully and sustainably and in your best interest, right? In your best, highest self. Not because you want to make a quick buck, not because you want to just be a business coach and then, coach people on how to run businesses and create that kind of cycle. You really want to support people. Most of my clients aren't in the coaching industry, and most of them have hired me for the first time. They've maybe worked with some therapists in the past, but they're not really familiar with the coaching industry. And I really respect that, because what that says to me is that I resonate with people not just in the coaching industry. And that's been really important to me. So given that you now know my values, I want you to listen to these myths that I'm busting. Oh my God, it's so funny every time I say that, myth busting. I want you to listen to that with that discernment in mind, with that perspective in mind, that I've created my business and continue to run my business from a place of real integrity in my work. It's really important for me that my prices are grounded and feels good for me. I've charged rates from $100 a month for one-on-one work to $20,000 a year for one-on-one work. So like I've done the whole thing. And I found a price point. I find price points in my courses and my programs that feel really right for me, not based on exploitation of pricing and price gauging, because I see that a lot, but that's okay. Let me focus. That's way out of the scope of this conversation. Okay, let's talk about myth number one. The reason why I even created this episode was because I did an Instagram story 2 days ago that got a lot of attention and a lot of people resonated with it. And that Instagram story came from me scrolling through Facebook and seeing a coach who was sharing her work and sharing how impactful her work has been. And she mentioned that she's worked with thousands of women. And that's, a way in which she is marketing that her work is effective and that she's an expert, right? Is that she's worked with thousands of women. And I've done that before. So I read that and I was like, oh, I see myself in that. I've done that before. I have marketed that I have worked with hundreds of women, because I have. But what's interesting is that when I read that, I got a knot in my stomach and this sadness that we push this idea that in order for you to be successful in the coaching industry, you have had to have worked with thousands of people. If you run a bunch of courses and a bunch of, small digital courses, you can easily, in the span of a couple years, theoretically, right, you could work with thousands of women. But that doesn't make you more of an expert than somebody who's worked with 5 women for 2 years, right? This numbers game, that the amount of women that you, or humans that you've worked with, equals your expertise it's manipulative. It's not accurate. I've worked with some women for 3 years now. So my one-on-one coaching pool is small. I work with roughly about 15 women, and I've worked with more than half of them for over a year. So, that means that in this past year, from 2019 to 2020, you could say that in my coaching work, I've worked with, let's just say, I'm pulling at a number here, like 20 women, not including my programs. That's not a lot. That's not a bragging number. However, in order to work with somebody for a long period of time, you have to hold a really special type of container. There has to be expertise there, or else they wouldn't be getting anything out of that work and they wouldn't keep working with you. So there's a real art to working with people long term. And the longer I work with people, the more I meet my edges, where I'm invited to deepen my skill set and deepen my tools and sharpen my tools on a deeper level, because there's a deeper level that you can go when there's such a strong foundation of relationship. I'm not saying that you have to work with people for long term. I'm just saying that, it's not very marketable to say that I've worked with only 20 women in the past year. However, I think that work has been deeply transformative for the women, or else they wouldn't keep working with me, right? So this myth is that the number of people you've worked with is equivalent to your expertise needs to be busted. You can do really beautiful work with a handful of people for a long period of time, create a really thriving business that's grounded in this beautiful expertise that you've developed, and none of that has to do with how many numbers of people you've worked with. This numbers game is true for so many things. How many subscribers you have to your email list is not equivalent to your expertise. How many followers you have on Instagram, again, is not equivalent to your expertise. There's a certain palatability that you need to create in order for you to have a lot of followers on Instagram. There's a certain marketing that you have to do and be good at in order to accumulate that number of followers. It doesn't speak to how well you actually work in your one-on-one and in your groups. There isn't an equivalency. I know, so, I've read incredible books, right? Life-changing books that have completely transformed how I understand things and see things. And I go and find the author, and the author has, 1,000 followers on Instagram. And it's like, what is that saying about them? That they're not experts now? They probably just haven't chosen to build that their Instagram. That doesn't mean that they're not an expert. So I think it's really important, especially if you're starting out, to really unhook yourself as much as you can from this idea that how many followers you have somehow determines how expert you are or how successful your business is. I've had really wonderful launches of Worthy Women Rise with 7,000 followers on Instagram. And then I've had launches that weren't as successful with 15,000 followers on Instagram. There's no equivalency. There really is none. Numbers are not equivalent to expertise. And obviously we can take this so much further. There's no number that defines you, period. There's no number, even revenue or income. None of that determines the level of work or worth. None of that matters. It matters in terms of like practical business stuff. For example, your revenue equals, a certain metric in your business, but it is not an equivalent to who you are, your expertise, and your worth in this world. I know plenty of people who have hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram and aren't really an expert in what they do, right? So let's just disconnect between those two. Okay, so that's an important myth right there. You can do really beautiful work with a small group of people. In fact, I've chosen to keep my business particularly small. Worthy Women Rise, now that it's a year-long program, I wanted it to be really intimate. I capped it at 14 women this round. That's really small, sweet container. And like I said, I have like 15. For some reason, that number is important to me. 15 one-on-one coaching clients. That's really important to me to keep that small. And I, by all metrics of my life, when I measure my business in terms of how happy I am, it is successful. I'm making good money. I'm paying off my debts. I'm able to travel. I'm able to buy the things, all the things. Okay. One more thing about numbers. I think there's another number that can get very messy. And it's the sense like if you don't make 6 figures by a certain amount of time, that's also an equivalent to expertise, but it's not. Okay. It's really, really not. Again, there are many experts out there who aren't necessarily good at business. That doesn't make them less of an expert. Okay. Next kind of myth. I see this, a lot, this desire to lie in your marketing in order to drive people into your business. Again, this is another thing that I've done myself. It's not a flat out lie, right? It's like we justify it. We make sense of it. Like it's not a full out lie. It's just a little bit of a misleader. It fluffs us up a little bit. For example, saying like doors are closing and, you're almost sold out, for example, when that's not really the case. You sold out simply because you changed the numbers of people, that you're accepting in. So it's not a full out lie, but it's a little bit of it's misleading. This is really tantalizing. Again, I've done this in the past. I go through the Facebook memories and I see things that I've written in the past. I'm like, I know that I was exaggerating a little bit there in terms of how successful I was. It's very tempting to believe that you need to do that sort of thing to bolster yourself up, to make yourself look successful. It's this idea of faking it till you make it, right? You gotta fake it. You gotta make yourself look more successful than you are, or else people aren't gonna believe in your expertise, or people aren't gonna believe in you. I'm telling you right now, people can tell. I can tell. I can tell when that's probably not what's happening. I can tell when people aren't really, when they're bolstering their numbers or you can tell. I can tell looking at the things I've written in the past about how successful I was. I could tell. You can tell these things. I can tell because I've been in the coaching industry for 10 years. So like I have a really strong radar for these things, but it's an energetic disconnect, right? It just doesn't feel good. It's not the way you want to run your business, and you don't have to do it that way. I promise you, you don't have to do it that way. And I know that it's tempting to fluff yourself up, but what's actually more genuine for me as a consumer is to see someone be very real in their experience, be very real in what they're doing and how they're doing. Whenever I see someone being like, okay, this launch didn't go as I thought, so I'm going to extend the doors open for a few weeks or whatever, I don't see that as being bad, like something is bad with them. I just think that, they probably didn't expect this result, and they're extending their card open. I think we need to do better as an industry. Marketing can get so sleazy, and we don't have to participate in that. And like, if we are driving a people first business where we are really in integrity with the ways in which we present ourselves to the world and who we are, then in order to not mislead people, right? In order to not create this culture of misleading people, then it's really important that we start with our marketing. It doesn't have to be this way. I promise you, you don't have to lie in order to create a business you want, period. Okay. The third thing that I see as like a myth that I want to bust is the idea that like you have to create all of these things in order for you to be successful. Like, you have to create this beautiful website. You have to do this beautiful videography. You have to do this beautiful intro music to your podcast. You have to do all of these really fancy things. Especially at the beginning, I think that that's a very tantalizing narrative, that you have to have all these things together. But every time I have a client who is doing this, who's starting out as a coach or starting to figure out their coaching presence, and they tell me like, I have to create this funnel first before I can launch this, or, my website needs to be better. I need to figure out my niche, even more clearly. What I'm seeing is an intimacy issue and a real fear of just doing what you need to do to get clients, which is just to put yourself out there. And I get it. It's very vulnerable to start a coaching business, and it can feel very tantalizing to believe that if you have all these things in place, then you can just open the doors and everyone's going to come flocking in. But I promise you, no one gives a fuck about your website. No one gives a fuck about your website. People want to feel your energy, and sometimes that's through your website, and website can be a great affirmation for people. I'm not saying don't have a website. I'm just saying it's not as important as you think it is. None of it is as important as you think it is. You just have to focus. And continue to put yourself out there. And that takes a lot of energy. That can be really hard. So that's where you need to ground yourself and do things in your life to feel good, so that you can be consistent in just putting yourself out there, just naming what it is you need. So you want more one-on-one clients. If you're not talking about the fact that you have openings in your one-on-one work, then what are you doing? Right? Then what are you doing? And so the one-on-one work for me has been the foundation of my business. And to me, that has meant everything. When I have a really solid foundation off of my one-on-one work, everything else feels easier to build off of it. One-on-one work allows me to have the knowledge of what my clients are struggling with, that then allows me to communicate more clearly what I do and what I don't do. That foundation starts with being a good coach. Nothing matters if you don't have that foundation down. You can build all the funnels, have all the websites, have all the things, but if you're not really clear on, the work that you're doing, because you're not doing that work, then nothing else matters, right? then nothing else matters. So building that foundation for me has been instrumental of one-on-one work and then playing off of that, staying focused on that until that felt sustainable and then playing off of that. Once I did my one-on-one and I felt really good in that, then I built my courses, then I built my programs, then I started to build. And I didn't need to have 10 million one-on-ones, just enough, a handful for me to get in the rhythm of this work. And then everything built off of that. For me, the skill of being a good coach is more important than anything else. And yet it's so amazing at how we invest so easily 10 grand into a website. We invest so easily in all of these other things that we think are going to help us, but they don't help us because we don't have the basics down. We don't have the confidence in our skill set down. We are not doing the work that we want to be doing, which is the coaching work. So, having that foundation needs to, what is the point of building a business if you're not doing coaching? If you're doing coaching, if you're building a business from coaching, you need to be coaching, period. That's just the way it is. Everything away from that is an excuse. It's a distraction. It's an intimacy issue. And hey, that's okay if you need to have that, that buffer for now as you're building the kahunas to really get into this. I get that. But eventually, this is what you're going to have to face. And luckily, you don't have to do that alone. That's where I feel like my mentorship comes in. That's where I feel like, there's so many ways that we can develop a really strong skill set as a coach. But that foundation has been crucial for me. Yeah. So here's my permission slip to you that you can build a coaching business that feels good and is in integrity with your goals and values. You don't have to fall into the lies about building this facade of how successful you are when you're not that successful. You can be honest, you can be grounded, you can be real. And let me just add, one of the best ways that I've grown my coaching business and that I invite you to do it is to build it off of your expertise rather than building it off of your lifestyle. Rather than building it out of how amazing you are, build it out of your knowledge and foundation of your niche, right? So for me, it has been becoming very, very knowledgeable about the worthiness wound. I love, I gravitate towards coaches who, for example, if they're doing grief work or know how to do grief work based on their own experience, is helpful, is informative, but they know how to do grief work. Relationships. I don't want to hire a relationship coach who has been in their own relationship. I want to hire a relationship coach who is grounded in an understanding of attachment theory and is understanding of imago and other methodologies for navigating relationships, right? So building a business off of your expertise is much more sustainable than building a coaching business out of fluff, out of lifestyle. By lifestyle, I mean just bragging about how beautiful your life is. There has to be, for me, something more substantive, which is, I'm assuming, why you got into this in the first place. And so this is your permission slip to let yourself lead with that. Don't hide your expertise. And I imagine that if you're listening to this, you're probably like, but I don't have an expertise. And that is the worthiness wound talking, because I don't believe that for a minute. And of course, the worthiness wound is going to come up when we're doing, this brand new work, when we're building our coaching business, being an entrepreneur. Of course, the worthiness wound is going to come up, and we need to start with that. We need to address that. If we're not addressing the worthiness wound in your business, then what are we doing here? Because in order for you to really feel like you can build a business, you need to feel worthy of it. So that has to come, that has to be a part of this work. Yeah. Okay. Let's remember that people first business is the way to go. It's the way to be sustainable. It's the way to be grounded. And if people are to come first, being responsible for the container you hold is key. Right? That's where I come in. That's where the mentorship comes in. That's where getting supervision support comes in. That's where, focusing on building your expertise, building a foundation, being a good coach comes in. Being people first means, creating a business that feels full for you, that feels in alignment with your values, that feels, like it's a part of you, but a part of you that is, grounded in Yeah, that's grounded in this capacity that you have to do this amazing, beautiful work. You don't have to do the coaching work the way other people do it. You get to find your own path, your own way. And I get really excited when I see coaches doing things that are really just grounded in who they are. You can tell you're not fooling anybody. So stop trying to pretend like you've got it all figured out. Lead with that. Lead with where you're at, with the fact that people follow those that are honest and that are in integrity. Let your expertise speak to you and everything will come. Cool? Okay. So those are just some of my insights about the coaching industry. I hope that it's been supportive for you. If it has felt permission slip giving for you, I would love to hear it. Tag me on Instagram. Let me know how this resonated with you. I love hearing from you. Season 3 of the podcast is coming to an end. I believe we have maybe just 2 episodes left. Let me check. Yeah, just 2 episodes left. I'm really excited for our final guest of season 3. That will come to you next week. I am sending all of you my love, and I'll talk to you soon. Thank you for listening to Reclaim the Podcast. This podcast represents the opinions of Thaís and her guests to the show. The content of this podcast are for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional psychological, psychiatric, or medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified mental health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition or mental disorder.